Spring camp is in full swing, and we have a ton of questions going into spring camp to determine where teams will be come fall time. And we will have some answers to these questions as spring camp progresses, but we got to talk about what the questions are first. Now, like I said, we have a ton of questions for a ton of different teams, and in the interest of making this not a 30-minute video, we're going to break this down by conference. Today, we're talking about the ACC. Now, the biggest question regarding the ACC, the most obvious question is Miami actually back? Are they going to stay back, or are they going to regress next year? Miami has a ton of players that are graduating. Guys like Carson Beck at quarterback, or Ruben Bain Jr., or Keem Messidor, two studs on the line this year that got a ton of pressure on teams, especially late in the season. But they're also losing CJ Daniels and Keelan Marion, two wide receivers that had a lot of experience and came up with some big catches and some big moments this year. Now, Miami is getting Duke transfer Darian Mensah at quarterback, and Darian Mensah was a pretty good quarterback last year. You could say better than Carson Beck, but I think he still has a lot to prove being at Miami. They're also getting Cooper Barkett, who was one of Mensah's receivers at Duke, so expect a connection there. But I don't think it's crazy to say that this Miami team is going to be a lot worse than they were last year. Miami is losing a ton of key pieces to their national championship run, and while they did okay in the transfer portal, they definitely didn't do great in the transfer portal, really due to the fact that they were still playing after the transfer portal had closed and they had to have an extended window to get guys in, but a lot of those guys had already signed with other schools. So for me, the answer is that Miami will be good, not great. They might win 8 or 9 games, but they're not going to be winning an ACC championship title. They're not going to be making it to the national championship game. They are just going to be a good team. Staying in the state of Florida, another question we have for the ACC is, will Florida State finally start to turn it around? I mean, just 2 years ago, Florida State was snubbed of a spot in the playoffs when their star quarterback, Jordan Travis, went down with an injury. The Noles went undefeated until their bowl game that year, winning the ACC. And then in 2024, they were terrible. They were absolutely terrible in 2024. A huge letdown season, especially coming from what they had just done. This Florida State team won just 2 games all season and won only 1 ACC game, finishing in the last spot in the ACC. But they kind of turned it around last year. I mean, they went 5-7 overall, far from a good season. Not a good season by any means. They went 2-6 in conference play. But that's better than the 2-10 season they had before. They made a step up. We also can't forget that they beat Bama in week 1. There were definitely signs of a good team there. They just couldn't put it all together for more than 1 game. Florida State's also returning Tommy Castellanos, their quarterback, who was far from good last year. He didn't play great. But if he can take the next step up, he could lead this Florida State squad to some big-time wins. And if not, the Noles got Ashton Daniels in the transfer portal, a guy who played 2 years at Stanford, then played a year at Auburn last year. In his 2 years starting at Stanford, in 2023, he went 58.8% completion percentage, 2,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Followed that up with a 62.7% completion percentage, 1,700 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Ashton Daniels hasn't looked great. He didn't start at Auburn last year, but in the few games that he played, he went 57% completion percentage, 797 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, mostly in mop-up duty. But we've seen quarterbacks that haven't looked great in certain systems go to a new system, particularly a fast-paced spread system, and look really good, and that's exactly what Mike Norvell runs. Mike Norvell also runs a ton out of the spread, which isn't putting too much pressure or asking too much out of your quarterback. I don't think the Noles are back, but I think the Noles will take a big step forward this year. I think you'll see an improvement every year. I think 2023 was their year to win it. Things didn't go their way. Their quarterback gets hurt. Terrible the next year. Bad the next year. I'm looking at an average to above average team. Almost good. A borderline good team this year. But they're making the right steps. Now, before we talk about the last couple of questions, make sure to like this video, comment on this video, share this video, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. We really want to grow this channel, get it as big as possible, get as much content out as we can, and really just be able to focus on college football content. And every like, comment, subscribe helps that goal get closer. So like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that. Let's get this channel going. Speaking of taking the next step, question number 3. Will Georgia Tech take the next step? They were good the last 2 years. They were really good last year. They weren't great. They weren't competing for an ACC championship. because they lost a couple of games they shouldn't have. This Georgia Tech team of late has looked like they are so close to turning the corner, to getting over the hump, to competing for ACC championships, to competing in the college football playoffs. They just haven't been there yet. And they're losing Haynes King. Haynes King, a great quarterback for this Georgia Tech offense, a guy that can pass the ball, can be accurate. You can tell him to pass the ball 20 times a game and you're going to have some success with it, but he's also athletic. He could also take off and run with it. And that is what Georgia Tech is looking for. Remember, Georgia Tech is Georgia Tech. They run a lot of read options, a lot of quarterback runs, a lot of runs or misdirection runs by the running back. And boy, did Georgia Tech get better at running back. Georgia Tech brings in Justice Haynes from Michigan. Justice Haynes last year ran for over 100 yards in every game he played in, except the game he got hurt in against USC, where he had 50 yards before halftime. So on pace for 100 games. We're going to give that to him. Every game he played in, he was over 100 yards. He just got hurt. If you followed me last year, you know that I was a big fan of Justice Haynes. I thought Justice Haynes should have been invited to New York for what he did. If he doesn't get hurt, I think he might have been invited to New York. But remember, Georgia Tech lost Haynes King. If you pair Justice Haynes with Haynes King, this team is going to the playoffs for sure. But Georgia Tech, they went into the portal, and who did they get? They got the brother of Heisman-winning quarterback Fernando Mendoza, Alberto Mendoza. Alberto Mendoza, who came in a little bit last year in mop-up duty. He went 75% completion percentage on 24 attempts, 11.9 yards per attempt, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he's the brother of a Heisman winner. Now, I'm not saying Alberto Mendoza is going to go win a Heisman. I'm not saying that if your brother wins the Heisman, you're just as good as him. But Alberto Mendoza is not a bad quarterback either. He's exactly what Georgia Tech needs. Someone that can throw the ball 20 times a game while you're primarily going to be handing the ball off or running a lot of read options. And last year, he had 13 carries for 190 yards, which is a 14.6 yard per carry with a rushing touchdown. Alberto Mendoza is definitely athletic. He can definitely run. He can run a read option offense, and he can throw the ball when he needs to. I think a bigger question is whether or not Georgia Tech's defense can start playing better than they played last year. Last year, they gave up 48 in a loss to North Carolina State. They gave up 42 in a loss to Pitt. Now, they did hold Georgia to just 16 points, but their offense definitely did not come to play that game, scoring only 9 points. I think they're definitely going to have the offense to compete, but their defense remains questionable. I do think this will be a team that is in the top 4 in the ACC. I think it's going to be a team that has a good chance to compete for the ACC title. And then we have what is definitely the most interesting question in the ACC, and that is, what will Virginia Tech do this year? They're getting James Franklin. James Franklin, who had Penn State a perennial 10-win team, just could never win the big game, never get over that hump. He would lose to Oregon during their whiteout game. He would lose in the semifinals 2 years ago. He lost a game to Clay Helton in the Rose Bowl. James Franklin, who is not a big-time coach. He doesn't coach particularly well in the big moments. But I think he's a great fit for Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is not a big-time program that has these lofty expectations. If you can go win 10 games every single year at Virginia Tech, you're going to be one of their better coaches. If you can just get into the playoffs, have a chance at the national championship game, you're going to be a hero. They're going to build a statue of you outside Lane Stadium. And I think James Franklin can do exactly that. But can he start that this year? Will we see results of that this year? That I am not sold on. You look at their transfers. They got 27 incoming transfers. A lot of those guys were from Penn State, and Penn State didn't play great last year. A lot of those guys were backups at other schools and weren't getting a ton of playing time or looking particularly great. But this is a culture-building year for James Franklin. He needs to come in, bring his guys in, bring people in that will buy into the culture, that will buy into what he's saying. And I think that starts in this year, and you'll be able to see that on the field. I mean, think about those teams that just don't give up. They're hard to beat, and you don't want to play them. They hit you hard, and the next week you're still sore from that previous game. I think that is what Virginia Tech has a chance to do this year. I don't think they're going to be back. I don't think they're going to be fighting for an ACC title. I don't think they win more than 6 games. I'll be shocked if they're bowl eligible. But the culture building started the day he stepped foot on campus, and we'll see the results of that during the season. And those are the 4 biggest questions that we're asking about the ACC going into the 2026 college football season. Make sure to comment down below. Tell me what you think the answers to these questions are. Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree with what I said? Let me know. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Do all of that. We want to grow this channel as big as possible, give all the content that we can, and really just focus on this channel. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to share it with a friend. Make sure to subscribe. Helps the channel grow and pushes more college football content on your feed.